Ashwamedha Yaga was followed by only the kings. Not even by a Kshatriya, even though they say it is every Kshatriya cannot perform Ashwamedha Yaga. It is only done by the Ashwamedha is followed by a king to demonstrate his power, to demonstrate his control over the rest of the kingdoms, over the rest of the kingdoms. Like Rama performed Ashwamedha, so the Ashwa is left to wander freely, and whoever challenges the horse has to fight the owner, the king, the Raja. And then ultimately, wherever it wanders, it all comes under the control of that king. This is called, and ultimately, when it comes back, after wandering all over the earth or all over the country, when the king comes back, then they perform a havan, and that is called Ashwamedha. And that such Ashwamedhas, if a person performs a lot of them, maybe 100 of them, then he is guaranteed the position of Indra. He goes and topples Indra. And now the Vedanta says even that the position of Indra is limited. The Indra is always afraid of losing his chair. If Indra is afraid of losing his chair, please tell me, is it not temporary? Because you can never have the fear of losing the eternal. You can only have the fear of losing the non-eternal. Therefore, even the chair of Indra is temporary. It's limited. It's not the answer. So when Vedanta highlights the limitation of even the Indrapad, even the position of Indra, that means you have highlighted the temporariness or the limitation of every pad in this God's creation. If you have highlighted the limitation of Ashwamedha, the result of Ashwamedha, karma, if you have highlighted the result of Ashwamedha, karma, then you have highlighted the limitation of the result of every karma, in which case karma ceases to be the sadhanam for moksha. So instead of really showing the limitation of every karma in Veda, you only show the limitation of Ashwamedha, so that the topmost karma, the topmost ritual, the highest ritual, if that is limited, then all other rituals become limited. This is what is called Prathama Malla Nyaya. In a way, it's not used in this context, but I don't mind using it. You knock off the existing world champion, then you become the champion. Yes. Like in all our schools, darshanas, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Charvaka, all these, Buddhis. Among the various schools of thought, the one who dismisses everyone is Sankhya. Sankhya is very good in dismissing Nyaya, Vaiseshika, and Charvaka and Buddhis and all schools he dismisses. Why? Because he has fantastic strength. That is, he does accept the subject as the truth. Sankhya school accepts the subject as the truth. The only sin that he commits is subject is one truth and the universe is another truth. Bas itna hi hai. So he is half right. But just being half right gives him unlimited strength to dismiss every school in the creation. I am trying. Sankhya is half right, and being half right is no ordinary thing. Because he is half right. That gives him enough strength to dismiss Nyaya, Vaiseshika, all of them. Because none of them understand the subject as the reality. None of them. Whereas Sankhya accepts the reality of the subject. And therefore, now what Vedanta does, Sankhya dismisses everybody and Vedanta dismisses Sankhya. This is what is called Prathama Malla Nyaya. So, now the point that I am making is just try to capture this. It will be a great thing. In Brahma Sutras, Bhashyakara doesn't spend too much of time dismissing other schools. He spends a long time dismissing Sankhya. So that in dismissing Sankhya, you have dismissed all others. Through which Nyaya? Prathama Malla Nyaya. Malla means wrestler, boxer. Prathama Malla means the champion, the first. The number one boxer or the number one wrestler, you knock him off. When you knock off the number one wrestler, then what do you become? You don't become number one. You transcend even. Then you become A+. You knock off the A. That's Veda. In the same manner, this is very important, just to make thinking very, very brief. If you can understand the limitation of Ashwamedha Yaga, the result of Ashwamedha, if Ashwamedha Yaga is limited, then every karma is limited. The result of Ashwamedha is Indrapad. So if Indrapad is limited, everything is limited. But Indrapad is very big thing, very huge, luxurious. He is the Lord of the heaven. He has every pleasure at his disposal. But even then, even heaven is temporary, limited. And whenever a king performs Ashwamedha, Indra puts hurdles. Why? He doesn't want anybody to complete 100 Ashwamedhas. Because if a king performed the 100 Ashwamedhas, he would come and topple Indra. So there is no permanent Indra. Indra is a pad. Indra is like Shankaracharya is a Pita, is a pad, is not a person. Whoever occupies that Pita, Shankaracharya Pita, is also called Shankaracharya. He has got his own personal name. He has got his own personal name. Swami Vidyaranya occupied the Pitham, but that is his personal name. But when he sat on that Pitham, he became Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya is a Pad, the Pita. Similarly, Indra also is a Pad, Pita. Okay, this is what we are doing. And the Rajasuya is different. Ashwamedha is different from Rajasuya. Rajasuya is nothing but an occasion to coronate a new king. Like Indraprastha was made and Yudhishthira was coronated, and they invite all the kings in the world and they come and acknowledge the fact that he is the king. He is not made a king in a hurry overnight. He is made a king and acknowledged a king by the rest of the kings. That is what is called Rajasuya. Rajasuya is different from Ashwamedha. Ashwamedha is the karma. That is being taught here. When you perform the Ashwamedha, you have certain result, and even if you do upasana on it, there is certain result, and that result is going to be limited. That is what it says. Okay, now let us see. Sayyam shadadhyayi aranye anuchyamanatvat aranyakam brihatvat parimanatah brihadaranyakam tasya asya karmakandena sambandha vidiyate. This is what we have to do today. The connection between the Vedanta and Karmakanda. But we have been told that there is no connection. Yes, there is a connection. And that connection is that understanding the limitation of Karmakanda puts you on to Vedanta. That is a connection. It's a very beautiful connection. It's a connection, peculiar connection. Growing out of Karmakanda qualifies you for Vedanta. That is the connection. Growing out of Karmakanda qualifies you for Vedanta. Now, before he comes to this particular point later on, but now what we are going to do is, what is actually Veda? What is the main topic of Veda? That he says here, because being introduction he has to touch upon all these details. Sarvopi ayam Veda. Let us begin here. The entire Veda, Sarvopi ayam Veda, this entire Veda, Sama, Atharva, all these Vedas, Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam, they talk about something which is not available for sense perception, and Pratyaksha and Anumana, Pratyaksha based inference. Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam, Anavagata. Anavagata means not available. Not knowable through sense perception and inference. Anavagata. Ishta anishta prapti parihara upaya prakashana paraha. Up to that. Veda only tells man the means to gain happiness and the means to avoid unhappiness, and the means that is not available for sense perception and sense perception based inference. Pratyaksha and Anumana. Through Pratyaksha I can always know some physical means to happiness, like if I enjoy this object it will make me a little, give me a little pleasure. I can find out what can please me and what can displease me through my Pratyaksha and Anumana. But Veda gives me the means by which I can get pleasure, I can get happiness in future, and I can avoid unhappiness for the future. And the means that can guarantee me future happiness, and the means that can avoid my future unhappiness, that means which is not available for Pratyaksha and Anumana is the topic of Veda. Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam Anavagata Ishtanishta Prapti Parihara Upaya Prakashana Paraha. Every jiva looks for Ishtam, means Bhuya. This is what I like. Anishtam, there is something one doesn't like. There is something which is universally liked and universally disliked. And what is universally liked is happiness. And what is universally disliked is unhappiness. So, just as one wants to be happy now, one wants to be happy in future. And future in Veda means next lives. This we have to fix it right here. The idea of future as given by Veda is the future, not only future in this life, but future generally means future lives. Veda does think in terms of the future lives. So the means to happiness in the future lives cannot be known through pratyaksha and anumana. The means to avoid the unhappiness in the future lives, I cannot know it through pratyaksha and anumana. And that means ishta prapti, anishta parihara. Ishta prapti means gaining what is ishtam. Anishta parihara means avoiding what is anishtam, the dukkham. Sukha prapti and dukkha parihara. For the future lives, the upaya, the means by which I can gain sukham in the future lives and avoid the dukkha for the future lives is not known through pratyaksha and anumana. Therefore, what does Veda primarily do? Veda primarily illumines the sadhanam for happiness, sadhanam to gain happiness, and sadhanam to avoid unhappiness. Not only for the future, even in the present, in this life also. Its fundamental approach is to guide man to happiness and to guide man away from unhappiness. Sarva Purushanam, for every human being, Sarva Purushanam, for all human beings, Nisargataha, Nisargataha means by nature, without being tutored, that is called Nisargataha. Eva, every individual has the desire for happiness. Everyone has the desire for happiness naturally, and everyone has the desire to get rid of unhappiness naturally. Nisargataha eva tat prapti pariharayoho ishtatvat. Every jiva by nature loves to gain sukham and loves to get rid of dukkham. So this desire for sukham and the desire to get rid of dukkham is not something that is subjective. It is universal. It is choiceless. So the Veda as a pramanam is not meant to fulfill the subjective desires. The Veda is meant to fulfill the universal desire. Ishta prapti, anishta parihara. Is it clear up to this? We'll come back to this point as we proceed. If a person says, suppose Dasharatha wanted to have children. Swamiji, is it a universal desire or subjective desire? One may ask a question. You said Veda is meant to help man. Veda is meant to help man to fulfill the desire that is there naturally, nisargataha. Dasharatha was not blessed with children and he wanted to have children. That desire to have children, is it natural or subjective? It looks to be subjective. But through the children he wanted to be happy. That is the desire. That is the universal desire. Through the children he wanted to be happy. Therefore that is called sukha prapti. So the Veda is interested in helping man to fulfill his natural, universal, choiceless desire for happiness and the choiceless desire to get rid of unhappiness. Pariharaya Now that is nisargataha eva tat prapti pariharaya ishtatvat. Next line. Drishta vishaye, in the seen world, drishta vishaye. Cha, and in the matter of the world, matter of the objects, ishtanishta prapti parihara upaya jnanasya. When it comes to understanding which object is pleasing and which object is not pleasing, in order to find out which is a pleasing object, which is a not pleasing object, I don't have to consult Veda. That can be known through Pratyaksha and Anumana. That is said, Ishta Anishta Prapti Parihara Upaya Jnanasya Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam. Only through Pratyaksha and Anumana Eva Siddhatvat is available. The pleasing, which object can give me sukham and which object can give me dukkham, can be figured out through Pratyaksha and Anumana without the help of Veda. Siddhatvat na agama anveshana. There is no, you don't really take the help of agama, the Veda. That's why in this world, most of the jivas, without consulting the Shabda Pramanam, they live their lives. They don't have to consult any Veda to live their lives, because they live by what is available through perception. And they know what can please them in this life and what can displease them. So they know how to achieve what is pleasing, and they also know how to avoid what is displeasing. Therefore, they can manage their lives without the help of Shabda Pramanam. And because they are able to manage their lives, not only that, they are also able to manage their pleasures. Because they are able to manage their happiness without the Shabda Pramanam, they think we don't require Veda. Understand, we don't require Veda. Why? I am able to live my life. I am able to enjoy myself, I am able to manage myself, I am able to look after myself. Why? Because I can manage my whole life by means of these objects. I don't require Vedic rituals. So my sense perception can help me to find out which object can be very pleasing, which is not. My Anumana can help me, which is Sukhadayakam and which is Dukkadayakam, and I can always decide to go for the Sukhadayakam and avoid the Dukkadayakam. I don't require Shabda Pramana. And in the same breath they will say, I don't require any God. I don't require any truth. I don't require any religion. I don't require any spirituality. I don't require anything beyond the senses and sense organs based inference. My own perception and inference is good enough to help me to live my life. Clear? If a person wants to live this life and die and doesn't want to think about the beyond, for him Veda it's not useful. It's not a praman. I'm going to repeat it. If a person thinks, I want to just to live this life and go, and I'm not interested what happens afterwards. I'm not interested to find out what is there beyond this life, etc. For him, Pratyaksha and Anumana alone are the Pramanam. Veda, he doesn't really consult Veda. Then whom does the Veda serve? For whom is Veda useful? That is said in the next paragraph. Nacha asati. Asati means if it is not. Janmantara sambandhi atma astitva vijnane. Up to that is very beautiful phrase. If a person doesn't have the knowledge, if he doesn't have the perception that just as there is this life, similarly there will be another life If there is no perception, if there is no knowledge, Janmantara Sambandhi. Janmantara Sambandhi means, having connection with the next life. Atma Astitva Vijnane. That the Atma exists, continues to exist in connection with the next life. Even beyond this life, Atma has existence. If this particular perception is not there, for whatever reason, if a person doesn't have, this knowledge that life, the existence doesn't end with the body, existence has continuity beyond. And there is Dehantara Sambandha, Janmantara Sambandha, Lokantara Sambandha. In this manner, just as I have got connection with this body and with this Janma and with this Loka, Atma can have Sambandha with another Deha, another Janma, another Loka. If this kind of jnanam were not there, asati vijnane, janmantara ishtanishta prapti parihara ichha syat swabhavavadi darshanat. Man can never have a desire for happiness beyond this life. The love for happiness or the love to avoid unhappiness, that sukha, prapti, the desire to achieve sukham or the desire to avoid dukkham, a person cannot have beyond this life if a person doesn't have the perception that just as I have this life, I can also have next life. And therefore, if a person doesn't think in terms of next life, he will not work for happiness for the next life. He will not work, he will not perform any rituals. Why? He is not thinking in terms of next life. Like what? Can you give me an example? He says, Swabhavavadi Darshanat. Charuvaka. All those who go by the perception as the final means of knowledge, Anumana as the final means of knowledge, and the sense object as the final realm of existence, the time, space, form, thought, this embodiment as the final realm of existence, no existence beyond this realm. And those people who look upon the objects as the final truth and the senses are the final means of knowledge, such people, they are called Swabhava Vadis, means materialists. All those Swabhava Vadis are materialists. Why are they called Swabhava Vadis? Let me talk on this a little. They are called Swabhava Vadis because Vedanta says it is created by Ishvara. The universe is a creation within the conscious being Ishvara. God creates the universe, sustains the universe, takes it back to Him. So there is Ishvara behind the creation of the universe. Vedanta calls it creation. Materialists don't call it a creation. They call it is nature, it is there. It is called Swabhava. It is the nature of the world to be there. How am I born? He says you are not born created by Ishvara. Your parents got married and you are the result. That is Swabhava. It is born of a wedlock. An individual is born of a wedlock. An individual is not created by Ishvara, an individual is born of a wedlock. And they were born of the previous wedlock. And they were born of the previous wedlock. This whole thing is called very, very nature. It is Swabhava. It's all the nature of matter. It's all the nature of matter. And all those who think that the universe is there as a reality, lying there as a reality, and we are there as a product of it, the universe is there as a reality there, not as a creation by somebody, but is there as a reality, and we are just a product of that matter, and we are here just to enjoy that world and go, and neither there was life before this life, nor there will be something after this life. There is no proof of it. In this manner, those who think in terms of matter as lying there, and the senses as the final means of knowledge, of any knowledge, those people are called Swabhavavadi. Why they are called Swabhavavadis? In contrast to Vedantis, who call the universe as Srishti. Are you able to follow? We are Srishtivadis. Hamiji, Srishtivada also is bad? No. Srishtivada is synonymous with Advaitavada. No Srishtivada. We explain this universe as a Srishti to finally show that the whole Srishti is not separate from the source. And when it is not separate from the source, then what is there is only Advaitavada. Srishtivada, the Tatparyam of Srishtivada is Advaitavada. Yes, this is very important for us to understand. The Srishtivada's Tatparyam is Advaitavada. By talking about the universe as a creation, we are only talking about the non-dual presence of the truth. When we talk about the waves as a Srishti, when we talk about the waves as a Srishti, the Tatparyam is the Advaitam, the non-dual presence of water. Therefore, one need not fight shy. We try to, when an Indian, when Vedantis describe the universe as a Srishti, we are not being theological. In the West, if somebody calls it a creation, he is called a theological individual. He doesn't know science. He is looked down upon. In the West, if a person calls the universe a creation, then he is looked down upon. Whereas in Indian context, when we call the universe a creation, we don't become theological, we are explaining away the universe. The universe is explained away as a creation in the truth. Of course, Maya Srishti. And if it is a Maya Srishti in the truth, an appearance in the truth, then the truth alone, then it is non-separate from the truth and conveying the truth that the truth alone is, despite creation. Thus, in India, when we call the universe a creation, it means something. In the West, when somebody calls it a creation, it means something else. Please understand. Therefore, an Indian need not fight shy to call it a creation. Why? Because you think, if I call it a creation, then I am looked down upon. It is not a creation, because Westerners don't like that word, creation. And in contrast to the word creation, the Charvakas, etc., they call it not as a creation, they call it as Swabhava. Swabhava means it is there without being created by anybody. It's lying there. It is the nature. It is the nature of matter to bring about some individuals. It is the nature of matter to please your senses. It is the nature of matter to displease your senses. And it is the nature of the individual to like pleasure. It is the nature of the individual to dislike displeasure. Whereas Vedanta says, Hey, you like pleasure because that is your Swarupa, that is unlimited happiness. You love happiness because that happens to be your Swarupa. You don't dislike. You like happiness because that's your Swarupa. You don't like unhappiness because that is not your Swarupa. In this manner, we unfold something else. Vedanti, why? I like the pleasure because that is my nature. Why I don't like unhappiness? That is not my nature. In this manner, we unfold differently. Whereas Charvaka says you like pleasure because as an individual, that is an individual. Not your Swarupa is happiness. As an individual, as a jiva, it is your nature to love pleasure. It is your nature to dislike displeasure. And it is the nature of the object, some objects to please you and some objects to displease you. Don't read something behind. In this manner, those who accept everything as Swabhavam without any reality behind, they are called Swabhavavadis. In this world, except Vedantis, everybody is Swabhavavadi. Yes, you will have to. Even those people who believe in heaven, after going to heaven, if they have to explain heaven, which vada they will have to adopt? Swabhavavada. Without the help of the reality, if we have to explain everything, the only alternative explanation, alternative to Paramatma as the source of everything, the only alternative explanation is Swabhavavada or Shunyavada. But Swabhavavada is perfectly in contrast to the Srishtivada. So they do not think of the future life, therefore they don't consult Veda. And Veda is meant to tell man the certain sadhanas which guarantee happiness not only in the future of this life but also in the future lives. Next sentence. Tasmat, therefore, Janmantara Sambandhi Atma Astitve, in the presence of, in the continuity of the self even beyond this life. Janmantara Sambandhi Atma Astitve, Janmantara Ishtanishta Prapti Parihara Upaya Viseshe Cha Shastram Pravartate. Up to that. Thus the Shastram functions in order to point out the continuity of the self even beyond this life. It talks about the presence of the Atma even beyond this life, and it also talks about the various sadhanas that guarantee happiness even beyond this life. This is the fundamental purpose of Veda. To guide man to his happiness in here and hereafter. Bas. Here and hereafter. And the sadhanas that it gives are not available for pratyaksha and anumana. Pravarti. Are there really the vakyas which talk about the next life? He says, Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye astityeke nayam astiti chaike. When Yama asked Nachiketa, please, now that you have chosen the first boon, you have chosen the second boon, now you choose the third boon. And in the third boon, Nachiketa chose this particular boon, that is, please tell me about, is there something that survives the death of the body? Some say the self continues beyond the death, and some say it doesn't continue. Vedantis say it continues. Karmakandis say it continues. Veda says it continues. Swabhavavadis etc. they say that it doesn't continue. Now that I have come to you, Bhagavan, please tell me, is it true that there is something that continues? Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushe astityeke nayamastiti cheke iti upakramya. Presupposing this question, Yama answers. Astityevopalabdhavyaha. Very beautiful. This question is answered by Yama, who says the continuity of the self must be perceived, must be appreciated, because the subject cannot have discontinuity, because the one who observes discontinuity cannot discontinue. This is all logic that we use, this is all unfoldment, but the Kathopanishad says you have to begin life with the presence of the truth as unnegatably. You have to begin life with the thought that the truth is unnegatably present in this life and next life until, and forever it is available. If one may continue to take lives due to ignorance of it, that is a different matter, but it's never negated. Astityevopalabdham. Then there also he gives a logic. Why? What if I accept it as present, then the Shruti says it's only when you begin with the thought the truth is, then you will have the jignasa for it. You can't have jignasa for the truth, you can't have the desire to know the truth if you don't conclude, if you don't begin with the thought that the truth is. If we don't begin with the thought that the truth continues, then you will not have the desire to know it. Therefore, astiti eva upalabdhavyaha. Thus the Shastra talks about the continuity of the self. Ityevamadi nirnaya darshanat. In this manner, Nachiketa asked the question, is there continuity? Is there something that continues beyond life, beyond death? And that is answered with certainty. Yes, the continuity of the self must be understood to be true. The truth continues even beyond death. That must be perceived. In this manner, Yama determines the continuity of the self, meaning Shastra determines the continuity of the self. Similarly, Yatha cha maranam prapya ityupakramya. In the same Upanishad it is said, Yatha cha maranam prapya. As soon as man dies, ityupakramya, and then Yoni manye prapadyante. After dying, some jivas are reborn. Yoni means, a womb. Yoni manye prapadyante. Having left the body, they are reborn. Yoni manye prapadyante. Sharirattvaya dehinaha. Sharirattvaya, for embodiment. So the jivas who leave the body, they enter the womb, meaning they are reborn for re-embodiment. They are reborn for re-embodiment. What does it mean? The Shastra does say that after death there is a punarjanma. Punarjanma is something that is talked about by Veda, no other literature. Punarjanma. Yoni manye prapadyante sharirattvaya dehinaha sthanu manyenu sanyanti. And it is also said, some are reborn for re-embodiment. Some are born as living beings and some are born as plants and trees also. Sthanu manye, it is also said. Some jivas may take the form of plants and trees. That is also jiva. It's a very, one has to appreciate it very fundamentally. A plant also is a jiva. It's a jiva. It has annamaya kosha. A plant has annamaya kosha. It has pranamaya kosha. It may also have manomaya kosha. And if there is a kosha, then there is a atma, koshi. Atma is there. So we look upon plants as jivas. And they drink water, they eat food also, they breathe in, they breathe out. They must be having some rudimentary thinking also, who knows? Just as when you look at a person, a human being, all that you see is only his form. You don't perceive the soul anyway. You perceive the movements. You see the form and the movements of the form and nothing else really. And you make an inference what he must be thinking. All that we perceive through perception is the form of an individual and the movements of that form. But when we look at the plant also it is the same thing. We see the form and the movement of it. There is a movement, there is a vertical movement, there is a growth. And as far as the Atma is concerned, the soul is concerned, that is not an object of perception. Because even though we may conclude that there should be as many souls as there are forms, but actually the soul cannot be an object of perception. And that is why here he says, Yoni manye prapadyante Sharirattvaya dehinaha. Sthanu means a plant and a tree. Anye some. Anusanyanti. They reach. How is it? Who decides it? That some are reborn as human beings or some are born conscious individuals. Some are reborn humans and some are reborn plants and trees. For that he says, Yatha karma yatha shrutam, depending upon one's own karma and one's own sanskara. Yatha karma means in keeping with what you did. Yatha shrutam means in keeping with what you thought. Action is an action. Thinking also is an action. Even thinking has results, Ji. It's very beautiful. That means Veda puts man, alerts man, hey, not only your actions have results, even your thinking has results. And your thinking creates a sanskara and your actions create phala. The present thinking will govern the quality of the future thinking, and the present karma determines the results of the future. Karma has a phalam, and phalam comes to me always in the form of the events. Karma determines the, karma means has phalam, it always comes to me in the form of good and bad events in future. And when a person is born, he has to face two things. One is his own sanskara, the other is his own prarabdha. So his karma is really bringing results for him, and his sanskara. That sanskara is what is called yatha shrutam. As per one's karma, as per one's sanskara, either one is born a human being or he is born as a plant. And one doesn't have to worry about that, because that is also upadhi, and after some time that is also gone. And the truth continues to take form after form. The truth has to continue to take form after form until it discovers itself. There is no other way. Until the truth discovers itself, it has to continue. In this manner, Veda Pramana does talk about the Punarjanma. So Punarjanma is not a belief, a subjective belief. It is mentioned by Shabda Pramana. And this because he has to build up the topic in a very, very deep manner. Therefore now he is making the the foundation very well. Another quotation. Swayam Jyotihi Ityupakramya. Brihadaranyaka begins the topic that Atma is self-conscious, is conscious. Swayam Jyotihi means self-existent, self-luminous. Let me translate it this way. Self-luminous. Atma is self-luminous. It's not illumined by the sun. It's not lighted up by the sun, moon, etc. because it's not a form. Being a conscious being, it is itself a light. Swayam Jyotihi Tyupakramya Tam Vidya Karmani Samanvarabhete. Then the Shruti goes to say, this Atma, though it is itself a light, but still Vidya Karmani, what he does and what he thinks. The way he thinks and the way he does, his thoughts and his actions, or his rituals, the good and bad deeds as well as the upasanas. Vidya Karmani Samanvarabhete. I would like to translate it. His deeds and his thoughts. Samanvarabhete would determine the quality of his next janma. Samanvarabhete. They start a new life. His thoughts and his deeds give him a new life, a new embodiment. Who is he who is given a new embodiment by the thoughts and deeds? Swayam Jyotihi, though he is a light. It is the light that puts on the form. It is not the form that puts on the form, it is the light that puts on the form. Swayam Jyotihi. Swayam Jyotihi. Yet Vidya Karmani Samanvarabhete. Thus, Brihadaranyaka Shruti, as we are going to see, also tells that Punarjanma is a topic, not a subjective belief. It is mentioned by Shabda Pramana. Now one may say, Shabda Pramana also it may be a belief. No, Shabda Pramana is an Upadesha given by, it is an Upadesha given by Parameshwara manifest in the minds of the sages. Apart from that, Shabda Pramana proves what it states. Understand? Shabda Pramana doesn't merely state and disappear. It proves what it unfolds what it states. What it states in Karma Kanda, it unfolds in Vedanta. In Karma Kanda, it talks about the continuity of the Atma, and it unfolds the continuity and the eternity in Vedanta. And the Karma Kanda and the Vedanta both have to be taken as one pramanam with the two topics. Karma and Jnanam are two topics within the same Shabda Pramana. The same Shabda Pramana. And the Adrishtam is not the topic of Pratyaksha and Anumana. And the continuity of Atma also is not the topic of Pratyaksha and Anumana. And the Atma being a Brahman also is not the topic of Pratyaksha and Anumana. And what is not the topic of Pratyaksha and Anumana is the topic of Shabda Pramanam. Maybe this is Shabda Pramanam may be wrong, be written by an individual. No. Once we say Shabda Pramanam, it is only, it has been coming down from person to person, from generation to generation. Just as the universe is not an individual's creation, the faculties, the pramanas, the eyes and ears are not an individual's creation. A mind is not an individual's creation. A faculty is not an individual's creation. Veda, which is also a faculty that points to certain things, is also not. It is a faculty in the form of Shabda. It is a teaching that is not created by a given individual. Because that's why it is a pramana. Once we say it is a pramana, it is Ishvara Srishtam. If we say